Hi, everyone. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, depending on where you are watching from. Welcome to the WFTDA 2020 Skate of the Union. We're really glad that you've decided to join us. And we know that there's a lot of new information that's happening. Even just in the past few days, there's a lot of information that is potentially changing situations or outlooks depending on where you live. All of these things impact the state of our sport dramatically, and it'll continue to do so in the weeks and months ahead. But in this Skate of the Union, we have some key topics that we'd like to discuss with the WFTDA and with the roller derby community at large. But before we begin, I wanted to give our WFTDA Treasurer Lois Slane a chance to join me, Erica Van Stone, the Executive Director of the WFTDA, also known as Double H, the chance to thank the WFTDA team for their support and hard work this year. I think Lois would agree that 2020 is not the year any of us thought that we were going to have. But Lois, I'll turn it over to you to say some thank yous.
Yes, definitely agree. This year did not go the way we originally thought it would. But thankfully, as a member of the WFTDA board of directors, I really want to thank the incredible team of not just our board, our staff, our volunteers who have worked so hard this year. Within the WFTDA, we're incredibly proud of the talent and skills of our volunteer base. Our volunteers come from our member leagues and the broader roller derby community. Volunteers create policy, do research, improve our systems from marketing, officiating, regulatory, competitions, education, technology, um, everything that makes roller derby happen. Our board of directors has been working tirelessly to create ethical, sustainable plans that have been instrumental in walking the WFDA through this incredibly difficult time. And being in leadership during times of crisis is really challenging, and we're so grateful to have the strength and resilience of my fellow members of the board of directors. And finally, the WFTDA staff who have tirelessly provided innovative solutions and expertise around the challenges we face as a sport. We're grateful for the thoughtful work that they do, not only for the WFTDA, but for the sport of roller derby as a whole. Uh, we're here today as the WFTDA because of their work to keep us moving ahead during what has been one of the most challenging years on record. So our presentation today will help explain the WFDA's path forward out of 2020 and into 2021. But before we move on to discuss the community impacts and plans for the future, the WFDA leadership wishes to acknowledge those who have left us too soon. This past year has been really difficult for the roller derby community, and we lost some beloved friends, family, and volunteers. Here to offer remembrance is Team Indigenous co-founder and newly elected City Council member of Portland, Maine, Jumpy McGee. Following
Thank
Jumpy's remembrance, please join us in sharing a moment of silence.
Thank you so much. Hello and welcome, friends. My name is April Fournier, or Jumpy, as many of you know me. I come to you from the ancestral lands of the Wabanaki Confederacy, where these tribes continue to fight for land, water, and tribal sovereignty. I'm grateful today to have been asked to speak and hold space in remembrance of what we are all navigating in these unprecedented times. I'm Dene. I'm resilient. My people have overcome so many hardships brought on by the colonization of our nation. We currently battle a different enemy, made stronger by the inequity, racism, and injustice of our systems in this country. COVID continues to surge in communities like the Navajo Nation that struggle with poverty, racism, violence, and mental health crises. When we intersect the already vulnerable populations with those existing with privilege and belief that the rules don't apply to them, that their individualized wants somehow supersede the lives of others, we see exponential growth and harm occur. My people have suffered. They have more than Almost 600 deaths as a result of COVID-19. Nationally, we are closing in on 230,000 people. Globally, 1.3 million people have died from COVID. This is not a joke. This is not a scam. And the most vulnerable to this disease are our Black and Brown siblings. We need to ask ourselves if our friends are worth the risk. Can we shelve our selfishness in order to preserve our neighbors? My answer is yes. I hope yours is too. Please join me in taking a moment of silence to remember those in our community that have made their final journey this year. May they walk in beauty as they find their rest. May we continue to be warriors for our friends and neighbors. May we address the injustices within our systems to create a more equitable space for all. Ahi'e.
Thank you, Jumpy. And thanks to all of you for joining us in this moment of silence. I am speaking to you today from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. What a lot of the world might today consider the seat of American democracy, but this too is stolen land, and it is the ancestral home of the Lenape. And I think it's an excellent reminder that we have to continue to strive to do better for our community and be better for our community, even when some of the atrocities and crimes of the past weigh heavily on us. We have the chance to do better always. And this has been an historic year, not just for our WFTDA members, but for the entire world. In 2020, we confronted topics of racial and economic justice, global health and safety, and the importance of democracy. And so we are going to talk about those today as they apply to the WFTDA. So in 2020, the majority of the WFTDA did not have the chance to fully compete or complete a season of roller derby. But we engaged in some incredibly meaningful work, and we continue to do so today. So we wanted to touch on some of the key issues and topics that we are working on to keep you informed as part of the community, particularly around our crucial work to dismantle racism through our groundbreaking art project. And the major shift these conversations that they're about to bring to the surface in the community around equity, democracy, and what that means in our sport. And lastly, we know that this has been a dark and isolating time for our community. And I say that right now with COVID-19 infections spiking throughout the United States. So I'm pleased to share with you that I do think we see some real light at the end of the tunnel, both with the success of our COVID-19 plan, and with news of a potential vaccine that may be available in the months to come. Of course, nothing is a given or a guarantee, but for the first time in a while, the WFTDA and our community, we'd really like to share some hopeful messages with you today. But before we even talk about the impacts of COVID-19 in the community, it's really crucial for us to talk about our efforts in dismantling racism. This summer, the WFTDA engaged in putting together a panel of community members from across roller derby to be involved in our anti-racism initiatives, the ART Project. A lot of the concepts that we're going to touch on today are some big picture items from the art project. And they've been discussing these in the last few weeks with so much really more meaningful work to come around equity and community. First, I wanted to acknowledge these wonderful humans. We're excited and encouraged by the work that the art project has already begun. And we're extremely grateful for the expertise and lived experience from all of these community members that is now being put towards the important work that they have been doing and will do over the coming months. This panel represents officials and skaters from around the world and includes an important array of experiences. We're excited and encouraged by the work the ART project has already started. And we're grateful to have the expertise from all of them. We have a variety of different types of representation, and we really feel strongly that we have representation that we haven't had in the past, as present as we've needed. So we're excited to be able to continue the work that we've done so far, and I can tell you a little bit about what that is. Specifically, the work the ART project is focusing on includes redefining membership and what membership looks like. In particular, is membership equitable? Can we make democracy more meaningful? Can we make it more engaging? Is transformative justice something that we can put to work a little bit more meaningfully for our community? Can we think about regional development in a way that we haven't perhaps thought about it in a few years? Similarly, we're looking at competition and we're thinking about equity around competition. Right now, the WFTDA has a ranking system that basically goes from 460 all the way up to 1. Is that equitable? We're really taking a look at what that means. And then one of the big concepts coming out of equitable competition is the idea of mentorship and collaboration. And that's something that we're going to be talking about really as the entire presentation proceeds, because I think our message to you today is that we are going to get out of 2020 together, but we need each other. We're going to need mentorship for leagues who have been here for a while to help leagues who maybe haven't. We're going to need maybe leagues who exist in a market where there are other leagues to reach out and engage those other leagues in contemplating what a return to play would look like for them. Our last topic that the ART project is discussing is governance. What does leadership and representation look like, or should it look like in the WFTDA? And how can people meaningfully communicate with the leadership of the WFTDA in a way that feels accessible? So if these feel like big reaching topics, they are, which is why we made sure that when we put this plan together, we made sure that we were clear. This is going to take a couple of phases and it's going to take a long time for us to work through these conversations. And we're really excited already by some of the topics we've been able to discuss. I'd also like to thank our diversity and inclusion members, our committee, and our accountability partnerships. These are conversations that we're also carrying over into those places. Diversity and inclusion put together a climate survey this fall, and we had over 3,000 respondents. Roughly half of the respondents said that their league has policy to address complaints of discrimination, but only about a third of them said that their league has been enforcing them. Similarly, about a quarter of respondents said their league provides diversity and equity training. And we also heard that in the member health survey that we put out this fall. Only a small fraction of our members are actually taking these issues on. We believe it's time. All of these topics are really going to be interwoven because they're extremely important to how we're going to go about rebuilding the sport. But the next topic, I think, as Jumpy mentioned, that is weighing pretty heavily on WFTDA leadership and has been all year is the impact of COVID-19. So impacts from COVID-19 have been massive to our sport, and we need to acknowledge that for sure. Early on in the pandemic, the WFTDA came forward and we took a very firm stance on the amount of activity in our sport that we felt was safe. We stand behind that. The WFTDA leadership stands behind the insight. Our COVID medical team, who I'm going to thank personally coming up, put a lot of time and energy and continues to. And I'm so grateful to all of them for coming forward and helping to protect our community. We stand behind all of the work that we put into this research and to our plan. Roller derby did, the WFTDA did what no other sport did. We centered our community in our COVID approach. And that is because we believe our values, we live our values. This is not just something that we're writing on paper. So as we discuss the return to play, as we discuss getting everybody back into the sport, know that we're doing it with our values in mind. Jumpy also mentioned that numbers have spiked dramatically. The last time I spoke with all of you in May, we had just over 4 million positive cases globally and 300,000 deaths. And unfortunately, things have grown exponentially to a catastrophic degree. In America, we are on the cusp of another major surge of the pandemic. And this issue has been compounded by poor implementation of a national plan. So, in the absence of strong leadership, the WFTDA has stepped in to try to prevent outbreaks within our sport wherever possible. But I really want to make it clear that we can't do this and we haven't been able to be successful without the participation of every member league around the world. I want to make sure that we are clear that when we're putting these plans together, they are with global access in mind. And we are really proud of and excited for the members of the WFTDA who are able to play roller derby right now in areas like Australia, New Zealand, and some places in Europe, other places in Canada. So we know that roller derby is being played right now, and we want to make sure that we're honoring those folks too. We know roller derby is strong and resilient, and we've been pretty clear about getting there together. Values wise, our sport is putting lives before laces, and our pathway to recovery is and always has been about putting safety first, putting lives first. And we understand that sometimes that's been frustrating. We've gotten feedback from folks that feel like our plan is very challenging. We understand sometimes it feels restrictive or unfair. And we know that roller derby isn't just about America. So we wanted to make sure that we are constantly evaluating information. And here's our COVID medical team. We've had a lot of press in America specifically about our policies that we've created. And I just can't say enough about how grateful the WFTDA is to this team for their work. We know that we've had reports of skaters testing positive for COVID-19, but they are not cases that are related to WFTDA roller derby play or practice. Again, that can change, but that's what we want. And that's how we want to go about engaging in this recovery. As you all know right now, we are using the WFTDA return to play ladder, and we feel very strongly that it is working. And it might be hard to feel like it's working when right now, if you've been on baseline conditions not met for months and months and months, that might feel really restrictive to you or like there's no progress happening. But this is the system that we're going to continue to utilize into 2021. And we know that it works because we've seen that leagues that have been able to step on are doing so. And then when conditions change, if they have to step down the ladder, they're able to do it and they're able to do it safely. So if your WFTDA league has not already entered your league's status, even if you're not on the ladder, if you have not entered anything into our member portal in the community, in a member suite, I should say, now is the time. Make sure that you have identified one of your league reps as a risk coordinator to be able to put this information in. Because we're going to begin communicating our rollout plan, our return plan over the next couple of months, and we need to have you in the system. For encouraging news, there are lots of places in the world where roller derby is playing right now. And I am very excited and grateful for the communications that I've had with those leagues. And we know that COVID-19 numbers are still shifting, right? We know that it's not over. We don't really necessarily have a strong idea of when that's going to be in different areas, but we've been communicating pretty regularly with national governing bodies as well. And national governing bodies often have government-related conversations and requirements that they are looking to do with their members and with their national system. And so we've also worked with national governing bodies to align our COVID guidelines as much as possible. And those conversations are still ongoing as things change, but we're going to continue to work with national governing bodies, with leagues around the world, to try to get the best possible outcomes of them using the ladder as possible. This also, to give you a little spoiler alert, this also really helps the WFTDA think about what a restart to competition could look like from a regional standpoint in 2021. So it gives us a really compelling case for thinking about return to competitions in a more regionalized way. We'll talk more about that later. Just another word on economic impact. It's impossible for us to develop an adequate recovery plan without acknowledging that we know it's been a huge financial strain on our member leagues. This fall, we did put out a second member survey to determine the financial and gameplay impacts that such a long pause has had on so many leagues. More than half of our leagues are reporting that they've had members leave. And we know that it's really hard to stay engaged if you're not able to offer a whole lot, if you're on lockdown. We've had the same conversations with other governing bodies. And this is not a WFTDA isolated incident. We know that this is going to be an ongoing conversation moving forward, where leagues are going to have to work together to try to figure out how they can engage on a different level. Recruitment might look a whole lot different when you're able to get back to play. And again, I want to cite the economic impact as a reason that we're really coming forward today and saying, if you're in a market where there's a lot of roller derby leagues around you, now is the time to be communicating with them. If you're in a market that has a lot of officials, announcers, now is the time to reach out and engage them and talk about what working together could look like. We also know that the path to recovery looks different today than it did 2 weeks ago. So our goal within the WFTDA leadership is to come here today to tell you that roller derby will return to areas that are not playing now in 2021. I know that it doesn't feel like it. I know that it feels like you're forever in this limbo of baseline conditions not met, but it will return. We're discussing at a leadership level what a vaccine conversation is going to look like, what it could look like for roller derby. Non-roller derby skating activities and fitness, though, are going to be a big piece of this conversation. Raise your hand out there, even though I won't be able to see you, if you have not been on skates for several months. That's going to make it harder to contemplate a return. So we're really thinking about asking leagues to think about the WFTDA return to practice guide, our return to fitness. It's going to be extremely important for you to be able to not just show up on May 1st or April 1st or March 1st or whenever it is that your league is able to get back on that track and expect to be able to skate at the same level that you did. It takes time, and I'm urging all of our members to create a work back plan. And I also know that a big issue in doing that is going to be making sure that you're communicating with your league right now, with your league members right now. So I think it's important to understand that the impacts of a lengthy pause in gameplay are not just financial, they're also potentially skills-based and fitness-based and safety-based. Because the COVID-19 recovery efforts are largely determined by national response, the WFTDA is going to be focusing on regionally based and community-focused return plans for competition. So we're working to align our efforts with national governing bodies and emphasizing community building. And this is something that the Art Project has talked about quite a bit. How do we go from emphasizing competition to emphasizing community building, or in this case, right now at this very moment, community rebuilding? We're going to need to design an equitable, sustainable, environmentally conscious regional structures or structure. And we're not sure what it's going to look like yet, but we're excited to be able to work with the community to help design something that makes sense. And I think we at the WFTDA leadership level are pretty confident that 2021 is going to be also a bit of an outlier. It's going to be probably a year that is a placeholder for whatever competition pathway or pathways, competitive place system that is yet to come. So we are trying to give ourselves some time, and we're trying to give communities an opportunity to return, to get healthy again, to build skill again, to rebuild membership again. And we're also excited to work with recognized tournaments to offer opportunities for those types of competitions as we can throughout the year. And that's about what we know right now for what we think competition is going to look like. But it's changing. It's always evolving. And so I think it bears repeating. Community over competition is the phrase that you're going to hear us say a lot. Before COVID-19, the WFTDA sort of recognized that our hydro competitive pathway, our ranking system as a whole, wasn't necessarily as equitable as it could have been. And again, the Art Project, WFTDA leadership, and global events of 2020 have really led us to a place where we are forced to focus on the community-led approach to the recovery of our sport. And I think that that's a good thing. 2020 feels terrible. It still feels terrible. But I think the benefit of what we are going through right now is that we have the time to work on these things, and we're going to continue to do that. So when we say community over competition, that signals a deliberate shift in ensuring that each member is having the most positive experience they can at whatever rankings level, whatever skill level they have within WFTDA roller derby to the best of our ability as a governing body. And so another thing about 2020 is that it is our 15th anniversary. Definitely not what we expected again, but during our organization's 15 years, the WFTDA has established just a unique model for sport. And as we've progressed throughout our COVID conversations, we really have found that there's nothing else like us out there. And we really can do better. And we're excited to do better. We're excited to create more equitable structures. We're excited to really dig into democracy. I think in the United States, and even folks not in the United States who are watching the United States from the outside, you know, biting their nails watching this last election cycle, we want to remind the community that democracy matters. And so it's important for us to be able to reconnect with you, to be able to reconnect with our WFTDA representatives, with our membership, because democracy matters. It's one of the things that defines us as an organization, and we very much want to find a way to revitalize it. But we've outgrown so many of the systems that we've created. And going into 2021, we're really thinking about democracy, member communication, what does equitable fundraising look like, and community building, and really prioritizing collaboration. I think one final thing I wanted to say on equitable fundraising and community building, we have a fairly substantial number of leagues who are nonprofit, who are not actively using nonprofit tools to be able to bring in revenue. That was another piece of information we learned from our member survey. So we are going to have to start having those conversations a little bit more meaningfully at the WFTDA and the league level. And of course, it was a year without events that brought us to realize how important that is. So as we end our 15th year, though, the WFTDA is really revisiting what's equitable. We talk about equitable structures. Well, what types of equitable structures or structures can we make more equitable? I want to give a big shout out to WFTDA Education for engaging the community on the minimum skills requirements. We hired Maha El Nasser as curriculum developer, who brought together who together with the WFTDA Education and MSR Task Force is currently working on overhauling and dismantling the old minimum skills requirements, creating a completely new approach to participant development. And it's no longer going to necessarily focus on baseline skill testing. We're looking to remove barriers to join the sport of roller derby. We're looking to create the new beginner curriculum that helps us do that, meeting each skater, each athlete at their level. So the MSR Open Discussion Community Forum is open and accessible for everyone in the WFTDA. So we're really excited to get your feedback on that. And officiating is also part of this equity review. Our WFTDA officiating certification folks are starting their process by removing the 30-day limitation on certification test retaking. So it's not necessarily that you have to wait 30 days to retake the test. You can retake it when you're ready. Those are just some examples of what we've been working on with equitable structures. And then as part of the Art Project program, we have been evaluating what democracy should look like. We've gotten a lot of feedback in the last few years around the idea of direct democracy, the idea of what WFTDA reps look like. So the Art Project is working on redesigning what democracy could look like in the WFTDA. Right now, our WFTDA reps vote on issues, but a lot of folks have told us that feels like gatekeeping. A lot of folks have told us that they don't feel like their WFTDA rep is necessarily as active or engaged as they need them to be. So we're working on trying to think about what a democracy could look like that you all would be excited to be a part of. Because increasing participation and engagement is a really key issue right now in the WFTDA. And so we did release a spoiler this week of WeFTDA. And this is one thing that we're looking to do. We're looking to overcome issues of communication, issues of participation and engagement. And we'd like to widen the circle of who's providing us with feedback. That's another issue that we have. We'll talk a little bit more about this in a couple of minutes, but know that we really care a lot about how we're getting information back to you, how we're able to communicate back and forth, and whether or not those systems are equitable. And then in thinking about rebuilding our community, we want roller derby leagues to think about what they need to do to prepare for rebuilding your league. If you haven't already, we'd like you to use this time to review policy in your league, especially around dismantling racism and discrimination. We'd really like you to prioritize this. We want you to use this time to review equity practices, We have a WFTDA Code of Conduct toolkit, and version 2.0 is coming soon. And then it's time to start talking about 2021. We want you to make sure that you're reaching out to other teams and leagues in your area, that you've reached out to officials, that you've reached out to announcers and support staff, volunteers, photographers. Have you reached out and started engaging folks? It's time. It really is time. I know it doesn't feel like it's time always, but think about what a rebuild process could look like. Maybe new skater courses, use the time for housekeeping. Start imagining what life without MSRs might look like for re-engaging folks on basic skills. But we want you to, overall, we'd like you to have your league make a plan. Because getting back to full contact is going to need time. It's going to need several months. And a lot of the folks who have come back already and are continuing to come back right now and are playing roller derby right now have reported that they've not necessarily been playing roller derby at the same level that they did in 2019. Or that they didn't get to a place where they felt like they were playing at a highly competitive level, if that's what they wanted to do. And so we're looking to take the lessons of people who have already stepped on and are succeeding on the ladder right now to be able to provide conversation and feedback for people who haven't yet. Because I'm sure there's a lot of great advice that those leagues who are playing right now are going to be able to give. So we want that communication to happen as well. The other thing we wanted to discuss today is insurance. We got a lot of feedback around insurance for 2020, and unfortunately, our insurer made it so that we were not able to provide any refunds, but we recognize that the community deserves to something, to pay less, to have some acknowledgement that they were not able to use their insurance for the full year. So we worked with our insurer to lower rates pretty dramatically. We know that not everybody is in a place where you're ready to commit to thinking about 2021. For those of you who are, we are opening our new WFTDI.com website right now. It should be available right now if you go to WFTDI.com. And we've gone from charging $75 last year for members to $50. We're going to leave that discount open for a few weeks, and then we're kicking it to $60 and then $65. So again, we definitely don't want to pressure folks who don't feel like they're ready to purchase insurance, but we wanted to be able to acknowledge something. We know that there was a lot of loss, and we're not trying or we are trying, I should say, to acknowledge that this was a difficult year for everybody. And not everybody got to play as much roller derby as they wanted to in 2020. So we really want to help you think about getting back on skates. The other thing that we are so excited to tell you about today is that we know that you might not be able to purchase this insurance and go out and skate in a roller derby game right now, but we have partnered with Community in Bowls, and we are very excited to share that the insurance that you buy as a WFTDA member this year will cover you for skate park skating, skate park roller skating. And again, this is US insurance. We have developed new risk management guidelines. Thank you so much to WFTDI, to Lady Trample and Rolly Cannoli for putting this together. We have new risk management guidelines for skate park skating. WFTDA members, it's stuff that you're already familiar with. We want to make sure that you have appropriate gear. We want to make sure that you have followed the safety protocol. And this is essentially going to be for you could host when you're ready to, when your COVID levels are ready to allow you to do this, you could have an outdoor practice at a skate park that is covered by WFTDA insurance. So this means that you get covered with one insurance one insurance price. You will be covered for flat track, you will be covered for bank track, and now you will be covered for skate park skating. So I wanted to also thank our WFTDI insurance team for putting this together. And a huge thanks to Community in Bowls and Lady Trample for the effort y'all put together to make this happen. We're excited to see how new types of skating or types of skating that have been around for a while are able to keep our community going, um, keep them engaged, keep them feeling hopeful about the future. Um, we know that it might not feel the same as roller derby, but we thought it was important to um, make sure that we put the word out there that skating is important, roller skating is important. And again, it's part of the conversation for getting your league back on skates over time. We're confident. I know that it feels far away for some. We're confident that roller derby, different types of roller derby, will recover in 2021. Areas that have not been playing roller derby, I believe you will be back in 2021. So we want to prepare you for what that might look like, and to help everybody use the COVID ladder and get back on track. So our thoughts are, number one, bringing the community in. WFTDA members, our old WFTDA forum is now read only. So that means if you're a WFTDA rep and you haven't been on the forum in a while, it is now read only because we have moved everybody over into our community.wftda.org portal. So it is important that you are able to log in. And if you have any questions or issues, you can contact portal@wftda.com. But the forum right now, read only. So if you're going there to try to figure out how to write something, it will be read only. And it's an important resource. So we're going to keep it archived. We're going to make sure that we have all of that information available. But we are really trying to refocus everybody into our community space, because the biggest pieces of feedback over the past several years have been, we need to be able to communicate with you, WFTDA, and we just don't know where to do it. So without further ado, let me introduce the WeFTDA Collective. This is an exciting opportunity that we have to invite the community in to participate in conversations with the WFTDA, with conversations around the sport of roller derby, governance. WFTDA members are still our members. They're still our leagues, our clubs. They maintain voting rights and leadership. What we have created is a membership collective, a sports innovation collective. We want to bring everybody into our community, to our forum, to our conversations, to be able to speak with us directly. So what is WeFTDA? The WeFTDA Collective, it's an online community for anyone who is interested or involved in roller derby. And so it is a collective, and when you join, you get access to the one-stop community for information about WFTDA. And what's cool is that there are a variety of different conversations that you can have, including regional roller derby conversations can happen there, WFTDA initiative discussion communities, anti-racism resources and libraries, our code of conduct toolkit will be there. And then it's an opportunity for you to give us feedback directly. It's an opportunity for us to speak directly with you with surveys, questions, polls, town halls, member-only webinars. So we're really excited to build it out over time. And we wanted to recognize that this is a step in the direction of redefining what membership looks like for the WFTDA. This is not necessarily the final destination, but we felt compelled to open up our systems and resources to anyone who is interested in joining and coming into the conversation to be able to talk to us. So, you know, folks have asked, well, what is this and why should I join? We are excited to just have one common place to talk about WFTDA and WeFTDA and all of the things that impact roller derby. We are broadcasting to you live right now, currently on Facebook. We're not excited to have to use Facebook. We're not excited to have to use certain platforms or portals that might present a values challenge to us. So, what we're trying to do is build out a community of our own that we feel excited about. Skaters, officials, announcers, volunteers, support staff, everybody is welcome. And this is really where we're looking to build out the community as best we can. If you are already a member of a WFTDA league, if you're a WFTDA rep, nothing changes. Nothing changes with our WFTDA member leagues. WeFTDA opens December 4th on the community portal. And we were inspired actually by the conversations that we've had with the community around the idea of pay what you will. So we do have a portal that we are using to maintain it. We're looking to ask the community to pay what you're able to, and if you're not able to pay anything, that's okay. The WeFTDA Collective is being offered at $30 a person, and then you have options to support others on the platform as well if you would like to. So it is exciting to be able to support each other. And we're excited to be able to think really equitably too about how this community is opened, because we recognize that economics, finance, those are barriers often to membership and participation. And our goal here is to just at least cover the costs of running the platform back into it. And we recognize that not everyone is able to spend money right now or potentially for a while, but we're excited to be able to put this forward. And we know that it's something that the community is going to be really excited about. Lastly, mentioning December 4th, one of the things that we wanted to bring back to the community is a little bit of celebration and hope. And I know, again, it feels right now like potentially you're further away from playing roller derby maybe than you were a few months ago, or maybe you were playing roller derby and you had to step off the ladder, or maybe you've been playing roller derby this whole time, but you miss being able to talk about it with all of those other humans out there on the internet. Um, we were not able to have our playoffs this year. We were not able to have our championships this year. And quite frankly, we just miss roller derby. We miss watching roller derby. We miss playing roller derby. And we want to celebrate virtually with all of you. So we are putting together 3 full days of throwback games that you're going to help us choose. If you go to WFTDA's social media accounts, you're going to find ways to be able to vote throughout the month. And I've already pinpointed a few games that I absolutely are the most memorable of all time for me. And they're probably different than games that you might choose. So we want to hear from you. So we've given you a lot of information, and we are eager to talk to you about it. And we are looking to open up our WeFTDA conversations December 4th. But we have a few key takeaways from our talks today, which is that we really want you working on anti-racism and equity policy now. And we do have places, if you are a WFTDA league member, make sure your rep is in the system. We have resources, we have conversation that's ongoing right now that we want you to be a part of. We want your league to make a return to activity plan, and we want you to think about collaborating with other leagues and teams in your area, because I think that that is going to be the strongest way back. Make sure you're reaching out to your community. Make sure you're reaching out to your officials. Make sure you're reaching out to your announcers, your photographers, your support staff, and let them know that you're excited to have them return with you when the time is right, and see what their needs are around those types of returns. Um, ask your WFTDA reps to check in on the community, because that's where all of these important conversations are happening. And we want you to stay tuned for more information about WeFTDA in the near future. And so I will leave you with this thought, which is community.wftda.org is the place that we are really looking to bring people to. You've asked us, where can I go for all my information? And we are answering to you now, community.wftda.org. It is a really exciting time. So with that, I want to turn it back over to WFTDA Treasurer Lois Slane.
Thank you so much for that really thorough presentation, Erica. I think we covered a lot of the amazing things that have happened this year. And I know at the top of this, I thanked our board and our staff and our volunteers that have put a lot of work into making these things happen. But I also wanted to thank you, our broader community, our WFTDA member organizations, our accountability partners, national governing bodies, our the JRDA and MRDA. There's so many people who are really important part of our community. And we thank you all for continuing to bring us feedback on the important conversations we've been having this year, bringing your concerns to our attention, and working with us. So just as we're closing our presentation, I really want to encourage all of you to stay involved. The WFTA exists because leagues, skaters, officials, and other amazing volunteers came together to share resources and build something together. As we've grown over the last 15 years, it has been challenging to maintain that same connection and sense of community when it was just a handful of leagues. But we see examples like the COVID task force and the art project that show that our community can really still do amazing things when we come together. We really believe our sport will come back better and stronger on the other side of this pandemic. And it's going to take all of us working together. So I hope, and the board is really hoping, that all of you will bring your voices to this conversation, that's joining the WeFTDA collective, volunteering for a WFTDA position, or just dropping in on our office hours or open board of directors meetings to share your thoughts on things that are up for conversation. And investing in the health of your own league is important to our community as well. So there are many ways that you can contribute to the future of our sport. So with that, I just want to really thank you again for joining us today for the Skate of the Union. We really hope that our WFTA members feel more informed and connected, and that the roller derby community has a better understanding of how we're looking to guide the sport into the future and grow the sport safely and sustainably in the years ahead.
Thank you, Lois, and thank you to all of you watching and joining us, whether it's live or after the fact. We appreciate all of your hard work, all of your feedback, all of your hopes, your thoughts, and we will continue to keep you informed as best we can as the year progresses. And I hope that everyone stays safe and healthy. And with that, I'll say goodbye.